I'm a guy that's 25. Lego Star Wars is my life. I like Ryan Johnson. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and this is going to be another episode of collecting every Lego Star Wars minifigure. If you're unfamiliar with the series, the title is exactly what it would suggest. I am trying to collect every Lego Star Wars minifigure that has been made. This does include some of the more rare figures like the Cloud City Boba Fett and the Chrome Gold C-3PO. This does not include the super rare one-off figures made of rare earth metals. Not going to worry about those, but to get things kicked off for this episode, we have a couple of battle droids. Always excited to see battle droids. On the left one, we have a battle droid commander. This came in two sets back in the early 2000s, one of which was the 2002 Jedi Defense set. The other was the 2000 battle droid minifig pack set, which was cool. I like that Lego did minifig packs at one point. They obviously can't do it now, but it was cool. It was nice while it lasted, I suppose. But yeah, it just has the yellow markings that we would expect on a battle droid commander. One interesting thing on this figure I thought was just the 1x1 tile they include on its back. I had no idea that they did that for these early battle droids. I just did not remember that at all. I remember the 1x2 plate with the antenna piece, but never the just 1x1 tile on the back. So that's kind of interesting. Not really too much of note to talk about. It's just a battle droid. Next up, we have a battle droid pilot figure. This is from the 2011 and 2015 battle droid troop carrier sets. This is the most recent battle droid pilot, which is kind of interesting because I like that it has the tan printed on it. I much preferred that to the older versions that just simply had a solid blue torso. But I still feel like this could be improved somehow. I don't know if dual molding might be the best way to go for this, because the tan that's printed on the dark, or not the dark blue, but just the blue color, which is much darker than the tan, it ends up not being really the correct shade. It doesn't match up with the rest of the tan of the figure. So I don't know, dual molding might be the solution to really perfect this figure. Otherwise, it's a pretty decent figure. I like these guys. Once again, I do appreciate that they started just actually printing on these and not just giving them the solid blue torsos. But once again, it's a battle droid, nothing on the back, just a standard battle droid pilot. Let's go ahead and move on. Next up, we have some Imperial boys. So starting off to the left, we have the Emperor. This was from a 2000 Sith minifig pack. We have a few figures in this episode from minifig packs. I'm sure a lot of people wish that those were still a thing. But the unique thing about this one is that he has black gloves, which was kind of interesting. I don't know why they gave him black gloves, because there were other versions of this figure around at that same time that were actually accurate and didn't give him gloves, but the one specifically from that minifig pack gave him the black gloves, and that's why I had to go out and buy this figure. I feel like I have a few of this figure, just none of them with the black gloves. So now we can add the accurate black gloved Palpatine to the wall. Next up, we have an Imperial Trooper. This was from the 2008 Death Star set. This figure is, what can we even say about this figure? So there's two variations of this. There was one with a light gray helmet and one with a black helmet. In the 2008 Death Star set, that set's really interesting because there are a few just running changes that they made with it, which I guess you could come to expect when you have a Lego set on shelves for that long, but you end up with weird things like, for example, this guy who came with a black helmet at one point and a light gray helmet at another point. So I apparently did not have the version with a light gray helmet, and I went ahead and picked him up for my collection, and here he is. This is the light gray helmet Imperial Trooper. This is obviously, this resembles nothing that we see in the actual Death Star. I imagine this is maybe an early version of maybe the Death Star Trooper, the one with the big helmet. But yeah, this was something. I guess if the black helmet version was the later version, I get why they did it, because the light gray helmet is just so far off from what it should be. The torso print, I will say, is pretty nice. It has that reflective print for the belt, and no back printing to speak of. Next up, we have General Veers. This guy came in the 2010 AT-AT set, which is kind of topical because this year we're getting another AT-AT and another General Veers, and he's been extremely updated. So it's kind of cool to look back at what was one of the early versions of General Veers. He has some armor on his chest, and he also has the armor on his back for some decent back printing, actually. I did appreciate that. One of the other cool things about this figure is he does have that Imperial rank on the armor. I thought that was a nice addition. Like, they could have just not done that, and I don't think most people would have noticed, but it's a nice little attention to detail that I appreciate with Lego. This is obviously the earlier version of the Imperial Officer in Combat helmet. They've since updated this and given him actual goggles, not only molded into the helmet, but also printed into the helmet that look incredible. Looking back at this, like, I remember when I first got this helmet, I think it was in the 2006, 2007 AT-ST set, and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, but we've come so far since then, which is nice. Other than that, his face print is pretty generic. I'd say it's been used for a few other people, but for its time, it was a decent enough General Veers, I imagine. Next up, we have some troops. Starting over to the left, we have a snowtrooper, and this was from the 2003 AT-AT set, the used to be GOAT AT-AT set. I feel like the one from this year is going to surpass it in many ways, but I have a lot of respect for this old AT-AT, and I had some fond memories of these old snowtrooper minifigs. I feel like I have so many of these on the wall because Lego has just made so many different small changes to these. This one specifically is the snowtrooper with light gray hips and white gloves. There's a few other ones I think that have like white hips and maybe gray gloves and just weird small variations like that that end up me just putting a ton of these on the wall, but this specific grouping of these colors is the one that I did not have before. But other than that, it's the pretty just classic Lego snowtrooper. Next up, we have the Hoth Officer. This is from the 2010 Rebel Trooper Battle Pack. This figure has been done many times over history, and it's honestly just cool to see how this thing has evolved over time. This was one of just the mid versions. Like, this wasn't the earliest version of this figure, but it's certainly not the newest version. I have a few other ones that have the same torso, pants, helmet, and hat. Hat and goggles specifically, but this one I think has this face print, which I believe is the J. Jonah Jameson face, if I'm not mistaken. I guess J. Jonah Jameson technically had a gray beard and gray eyebrows. This one has brown. So the final figure in this group is the clone pilot from the Clone Wars, which I have to admit does not look that bad. You guys know I'm not a fan of the Clone Wars styled pilots, but I think the detail they included in the helmet, like the yellow striping going on the fin, and even the two red Republic logos on the helmet, look pretty cool. And I mean, the torso, like a breathing apparatus, looks nice as well. I'm actually kind of a fan of this figure. Still not one I'd want to use in a mock. I'd want a realistic version of it, but this one I just feel doesn't look as offensive to me as just the standard Clone Wars style clone trooper, so I give it a little bit of credit for that. As you'd expect, oh, it has a black head. I was totally expecting for it to have just angry Clone Wars clone head, but yeah, it has a black head. That's news to me, but other than that, yeah, just your typical Lego Clone Wars clone trooper. Next up, we have a group of Rebel pilots. So first up, we have Luke. This was from the 2006 X-Wing, and this is also another variation. The original 2006 X-Wing, I believe, had Luke without the pupils. He just had the solid black eyes, but at some point in time, they updated it to have these pupils with just this updated face in general, and that's why I had to go out and purchase this figure, because I actually did have that 06 X-Wing in my childhood, but the torso and legs are just the standard classic Lego Rebel pilot jumpsuit, like nothing of note to talk about there. No back printing. But next up, we have Zev Seneska. This was in the 2011 Advent Calendar. The weird thing about this one is he has just no printing on the helmet at all, which I always thought was weird. They just released him with a solid white helmet. I would even think they might want to do just the generic blue one that Dak has, but no, like just nothing on the helmet at all. I always just thought that was weird. I don't know why they did that way. But his torso, this was a nice thing about the era, is it was updated. You can obviously see it has a bit more detail in it, and I'd say it's definitely an upgrade over the original version. The one thing that's weird about this torso, and even like the one next to it, because it's, I believe both of those are the same print, is originally when they were printing these, like, you can see the silver or white color behind. Yeah, that's probably like light gray or white. Looks pretty good. You know, it's pretty solid looking. It's not translucent in any way. That's the best way I could describe that. But the two newer versions, you can see that like the orange behind them really stick out, and it just totally throws off the shade of the white jumpsuit. I don't know if you can tell as well on camera, but I think you can definitely tell a difference between like how solid this color looks and how not solid these colors look. So that's an interesting thing. Like, they were able to nail that pretty perfectly back in the day, but for these newer ones, they just weren't able to do that. The next figure is a snowspeeder pilot. This was in a 2013 Hoth planet set. I believe that's one of the planet sets that weren't even released in the US. So it's kind of cool to have this figure. I think it has the newer like leg printing, but it doesn't have the newer torso printing, if I'm remembering correctly. I think this has actually changed a little bit with the newest versions of the snowspeeder pilots. The one thing that's actually incorrect about the figure they sent me is this should have white gloves, so before I put this on the wall, I have to remember to update that. But yeah, like I mentioned before, the torsos are the same between these two. It's just the leg print that's a bit different. And of course, this was back in the era when they were just doing the very solid looking orange print on the face. I think that when they went with like a lighter color, it looked much better for the printing on the face that was supposed to represent the visor. Next up, we have two Yodas. The one on the left is obviously the Santa Yoda. He came in the 2011 Advent Calendar set. Lots of 2011 Advent Calendar minifigs in this haul, but it's the Clone Wars style Yoda. He obviously has his own custom torso. You can even see a bit of his sand green neck peeking through there, which is kind of cool. He has a candy cane on his holster, which is kind of funny. You'd imagine a Jedi would have their lightsaber there. And he also has a backpack that you can put whatever, and it's a giant backpack. I always found this backpack so comically large with Lego. They've even done a bigger one. There's like this big blue one they've also made. And I don't know, it always looks silly when Lego tries to make these functional backpacks where you can actually fit stuff in it. Like, I get it, but it just looks so comically large. Next up, we have another Clone Wars Yoda. I've actually featured a few of these in this video series, but this one, once again, is another weird configuration. This one came in the 2013 Yoda Chronicles set. This is the specific, unique configuration of having the light gray hair and the back printing. Some of them have white hair with back printing, some have white hair with no back printing, some have gray hair with no back printing. So there's a lot of weird variations of this Yoda, but this one specifically is one I didn't have, so it's nice to add yet another Clone Wars Yoda to my minifig wall. Our final group of figures are going to be some Rebel boys and girls. This one is an interesting one. If you're wondering why there's two Leias on the side, there was such a small, minute change in these figures, and I had to get both of them that I thought it was like totally worth it to show you guys the difference and how difficult it is to tell these two figures apart when you have them here in person. So these both came in the 2008 Death Star set, and like I mentioned, there were a bunch of running changes in that set, including a Leia with big eyes and small eyes. That's literally what they're called. This is Leia with small eyes, this is Leia with big eyes. Fortunately, the big-eyed Leia also has like a bigger like lip print, so it's a lot easier to distinguish the two, but like just from the eyes alone, like it's not that easy to tell them apart. Like when I got mine in, like I went and got my other one, because I think I originally had the big-eyed version. I did not have the small-eyed version, and I was just like, geez, like, are the eyes actually bigger? Like, is that not just like a small printing difference? Like, was it really necessary to call these two different figures and force me to have to buy both of them? Well, that was just weird. But yeah, this is big-eyed Leia and small-eyed Leia. If you have the 2008 Death Star, I'd recommend check it out. See which Leia you have. See if you can even figure it out. Like, don't even pull up either one. Just look at it and you tell me if you can tell without any reference material if it's a big-eyed Leia or a small-eyed Leia. Next up, we have Commander Sato. I'm super happy to have this figure. This came in the 2016 Rebel Frigate set. Also, that same set came with the Ahsoka that everyone's spending crazy amounts of money on. I like this figure a lot. I like his unique skin tone. I thought that was nice. His torso print is just a cool generic. It's not really generic, it's pretty specific to him, but I think if you just wanted to do a mock that had rebels in it, like he has a nice rebel officer torso print. He does also have a bit of back print with the blue at the top, which also looks pretty nice, but I'm happy to have Sato. Sato was a cool character. He had his own version of a Holdo maneuver light in Rebels, so I'm happy to finally have this guy in my collection. This was like a $16 figure, so not super expensive, but definitely not cheap. So let's go ahead and go to the time lapse, guys. All right, one thing you guys are going to notice is a common theme throughout this episode is minifigures that don't have a spot on the wall. Why do they not have a spot? Basically, earlier this week, or actually sometime last week, Brick Link and Brick Set both updated their minifig catalogs in regards to LEGO Star Wars minifigures, and included, I think, 50 or so more variations of figures that they didn't yet have cataloged before. So, I mean, I was like less than 100 figures away from finishing my wall, and that became like 150 figures away from completing the wall, which was pretty annoying. I was kind of frustrated by that. You know, you think you're so close and at the finish line ends up being a moving target. But what that means is the way that I currently have my minifig wall configured is just all screwed up, adding that many more minifigure variations like Big Eyes and Small Eyes Leia obviously meant that, you know, I just didn't have spots for them when I initially made this, which is not the worst thing in the world. I was already planning to update this wall, extending it and just basically shifting everything over, because there were a few just user mistakes that I made, but the fact that there were that many new figures added just means that we're going to have a lot of figures moving forward that just don't have spots on the wall, which kind of sucks. So you'll see, like up here, for example, the Luke Skywalker that I added from 06, the one with the updated face, is just kind of stuck right there. Over here, the Leia, I had space for the small-eyed Leia, did not have space for the big-eyed Leia, and I think the smooth hair Leia is also supposed to be in there, so that's another one that's gonna have to be shifted over. The Snowspeeder, once again, like I think the spot next to him was someone else, so I just had to stick him right there. And that's just happening all over the place on this minifig wall right now. Fortunately, there were a few places where that didn't have to be the case. Like over here, I was able to add the newer Rebel Snowspeeder pilot. And then over here, we had quite a few figures clustered, which was pretty interesting. I think this is like the Advent Calendar crew. So we had the Zev Sineska figure, we had the clone pilot with a black head, the Advent Calendar, Yoda. All three of those were new figures for this episode, and they were newly added to the wall. So other than that, I think the wall's looking pretty satisfactory. Once again, I think you guys can get a very clear view at just how much progress this thing is making. I bought a considerable amount of figures this week. There are a few of them that were actually the wrong figure that was sent to me, or I just ordered the wrong variation of it, which was kind of annoying. There was one figure that I had actually ordered twice, like I placed two different orders and I threw the same figure in both baskets, which was annoying. And then there was one circumstance that was super annoying. Apparently I didn't realize I already had a Sato minifigure chilling right there. So now I have two Satos. I don't know what to do with them. I might just keep him, honestly. Like I guess I mentioned earlier in the review portion that I did like his outfit, so if I decide to do some sort of Rebel base or just Rebel anything related mock, I'll have just more torsos to use, but that was kind of an expensive figure. I didn't really want to buy that a second time right now if I didn't have to. But I just need to be more diligent about that. I think because I have so many more figures now, like the percentage of figures I don't have is so small that it just becomes difficult remembering what I have. Like years ago, I could have told you like exactly whether or not I owned a figure, but having so many of them now, that just becomes more difficult. I don't know, maybe I'm getting old. I'm 25 now, my brain's rotting away, whatever. But yeah, that's gonna finish up the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.